Hello everyone and welcome to another round of Tuesday Night Legacy. Tonight we have Elves versus Enchantress. On the left we have John playing an Elves list. This is a classic deck in Legacy. It is an aggro combo deck that tries to abuse the card Glimpse of Nature, as well as things like Heritage Druid and the fact that all of your creatures are elves. So you're playing a ton of elves in one turn. You're drawing cards every time that you cast a spell, a creature spell that is, and there are several cards that can make this combo happen. The Nettle Sentinel, as you're casting spells, you're able to untap it, which allows you to tap it again as a part of the Heritage Druid cost, which is gaining you a bunch of mana. The Wirewood Symbiote is allowing you to untap a creature as well as returning an elf to your hand, which is actually a great thing since you can play an Elvish Visionary, which allows you to draw even more cards. And so you're drawing cards, you're untapping elves, and then finally, just for 4 mana, you can play this Natural Order. We're going to have to get one that is in English, and you natural order for your big boy, the Craterhoof Behemoth, which is going to pump your whole team, and then you turn it sideways because they're all huge with trample, and that's usually way more than 20 damage, typically on turns 2, 3, or 4. On the right, we have Alex playing his Enchantress list. This deck is all about drawing cards as well, just in a little bit of a different way. Instead of playing creatures, you're playing enchantments. The cards that are making this happen are Argothian Enchantress, Sithis Harvest Hands in Enchantress's Presence, which all say whenever an enchantment is played, draw a card. And so he's just trying to play a ton of enchantments, trying to gain as much advantage as he can, using a Serra Sanctum to get a bunch of mana so that he can eventually, once he has like 10 or 15 enchantments on the field, play this Destiny Spinner and make his lands giant XX creatures with trample and haste and turn that sideways, and that wins him the game. Now, this isn't the best first game for Alex, as his spot removal is all in his cast outs and his on thin ices. Pretty much everything else is dedicated to drawing him cards, but in the sideboard, John is going to have to look out for Engineered Plague, as you can just name that on elves, and that's pretty much the end of the game, or an Elephant Grass, which is going to make it much harder for John to be able to attack, since he has to pay 2 mana for each attacking creature. But don't count John out yet, since he does have some spot removal of his own in Assassin's Trophy. All right, enough about the decks. Let's get this game going. We have Alex on the play here, starting with a Forest into a Wild Growth. Wild Growth basically just giving an extra mana, extra green mana there. We see John doing some ramping of his own with that very nice foil Miscut Forest into a Green Sun Zenith, grabbing a 0 cast. The only 0 cast in the deck, of course, being Dryad Arbor, not having a converted mana cost. Means that it is 0 cast by default. We see Alex playing a Sithis, one of his engines of the deck here, getting to draw extra cards whenever he plays enchantments, and then an Abundant Growth means he will net 2 cards and a life for 1 mana. Pretty good. Off of that floating green mana. So now that Forest is tapping for any color that he wants. Typically it's just going to be green or white, but he does have some fun stuff in the sideboard that costs a couple different colored mana. John kind of stuck on what he wants to do here on turn 2. Does have the land drop there. There's a Green Sun Zenith. Looks like a Wirewood Symbiote. Maybe he has, he's got 2 Glimpse of Nature. Probably trying to decide when he's going to fire that off, because he's going to start drawing quite a few cards, but it looks like he doesn't have any mana generation, so he doesn't want to waste those glimpses and run out of steam. So we see him just do another Green Sun Zenith for 1. It's going to get us a Quirion Ranger, being able to untap a forest, or no, return a forest to his hand to untap a creature, which basically means he's probably not going to run out of land drops here. Uses that Verdant Catacombs to go get his second Dryad Arbor, and then just play a forest out of his hand. Being able to return a forest to untap a Dryad Arbor kind of gives him a little bit of a ramp. Like I said, if he doesn't have a land drop, then at least he can have a little bit more mana, 1 more mana that turn. Looks like Alex is playing Commune with the Spirits. Looking at the top 4. Deciding on an enchantment or a land to keep. Decides on Utopia Sprawl, being able to choose a color when it comes into the battlefield, instead of just being green like Wild Growth. pays that one, probably green, I would guess. He's got one green floating. Utopia Sprawl goes on his Savannah. He's not worried about Wastelands. Elves does not typically run any Wastelands. They're kind of focused on their strategies. All in. Alex has these fun little cutouts of the bottom of basic lands to denote what color. So even though the glare is super bad because those are actually foiled, it is white that land is tapping extra for. We do a second Commune with Spirits. Deciding, gets the basic land, goes for Forest, shuffles them up onto the bottom. Let's see here. Taps 2 for the Destiny Spinner, making all of his creatures and enchantments uncounterable. Not that that matters, but it's also a win condition, so paying 4, being able to make one of his lands into a big XX creature with trample, where X is the number of enchantments he controls, which is currently 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yep. John's still deciding here. He's got enough ramp now that he can probably play a natural order, which is maybe what he's trying to set up for, sacrificing, I'm guessing, the Dryad Arbor to be able to turn his creatures sideways. But he might use that Return of Forest, tap and play and tap again to get down another creature. He's got that Wirewood Symbiote in his hand. And the cool thing about that ability, yeah, there's the Wirewood. We're returning it, floating some mana with the Dryad Arbor. So he's got 1 green floating. Plays the land again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 green floating. He's got an Elvish Visionary, which may draw him a card. No, he goes for the natural order, gets rid of that Dryad Arbor. So this is going to go and grab Craterhoof Behemoth more than likely. We'll see if that's what he decides on. That's probably the big play here. Craterhoof is going to give +4/+4 to all creatures in play. Doesn't give them haste, but it does give them trample. So that big boy himself is going to be a 9/9 crashing across. So that's additional 12 in addition to the power and toughness of the creatures. So 5 from the Craterhoof and 2 more from the other creatures. So that's 7 plus 12 is 19. Alex trying to decide here if he's willing to take 19 damage. He knows that Sithis is going to gain him a bunch of life. He's going to soak up 2. So it's only going to be 17, going down to 5. Maybe I did my math bad. 7 plus 5 plus 12. 1, 2, 3, 4 creatures. I guess it was 6. Who knows? In any case, Alex is playing some enchantments here. Plays an Abundant Growth, draw 2 cards. Plays a Wild Growth, draw 1 card. Gains 2 life. And that was all off of his 1 basic forest. Tapping for all sorts. Another Utopia Sprawl. So Alex is basically in the perfect position here that he wants to be in. Being able to play all these 1-mana cantrips and be able to juice his lands in such a way that they continue to make more mana. See the 1 of Miri's Guile? This is going to set up his draws in the future. Being able to look at the top 3, put them back in any order. Make sure that he's not drawing duds, even though he's drawn so many cards. He's got a second Sithis in hand. But I think he's just going to pass it back. He's worried. Oh, no. So 3 mana here. This is at least white-green, plus whatever he's deciding Savannah's tapping for. Is he going to drop the second Sithis? So Sithis being a legendary creature, he loses 1, but at least he gets to draw a card and an additional life. And we're seeing with the extra white mana that he's making in On Thin Ice. On Thin Ice being able to exile a creature. Attaching to a basic snow. Enchant Snowland. It doesn't have to be a basic, as long as it's a snowland. Is Dark Depths a snowland? I would assume it is. So now Alex is trying to decide, do I take care of the Craterhoof Behemoth, or do I try to get the Quirion Ranger? Problem is that Wirewood Symbiote is going to be able to bounce the Quirion Ranger, and the Quirion Ranger is going to be able to bounce the Dryad Arbor. So really, the two choices here are the Symbiote or the Craterhoof Behemoth. But I guess Alex chooses the Dryad Arbor to try and slow John down so that he can't natural order again this turn. So 2 mana, we're going to see Elvish Visionary, just a 2 mana draw card. John is, yeah, not doing great on lands, so just redeploys the Dryad Arbor, decides that he can wait a turn, crashes in with Craterhoof Behemoth, takes away most of the life gain that Alex got from that last turn, which is kind of nuts when you think about it. Like, Alex played 6 enchantments last turn. So Alex up 1 life from his last alpha, from John's last alpha strike there. Just seeing a Prismatic Vista. I'm going to be able to go and get any basic. Either forest or plains. Probably forest in this case. A lot of Alex's spells are green. And he's got so much mana fixing that grabbing the plains. Looks like he's only got 1 snow-covered plains in the deck and 6 forests. Seeing an Enchantress's Presence. One of the enchantments that gets to draw him cards like Argothian Enchantress. Another Abundant Growth. So getting to draw 3 cards off of that. Enchantress Presence, Sithis, and also Abundant Growth itself. But it doesn't look like Alex has a ton of sweeping abilities in his main board here. He's got that Cast Out that he has in hand. He's got the Onthanises, which are great spot removal cards. Cast Out being this, being able to get rid of a non-land permanent. But nothing that really, like, deals with all of these little 1/1s that all have these cool abilities. Being able to return to hand, play again, tap extra mana. John seeing a Green Sun Zenith for 1. Probably grabbing Heritage Druid here. Starts to want to go off. Yep. So Heritage Druid being the elf that is going to allow 3 elves to be tapped to get 3 green mana. Here is the first Glimpse of Nature. So this is whenever a creature spell is cast now, during this turn, you get to draw a card. And John having a ton of one of drops. Yeah, just one mana creature spells. Geez, that was tough to say in his deck. He goes for the second one. And we're drawing 3 cards off of this Elvish Visionary. Because of it being a creature and then also drawing a card itself. The other card in John's hand is the Natural Order. So I think John is just trying... Oh, there's the Gaia's Cradle. I think that's it. John hasn't played a land for turn. Gaia's Cradle allowing him to get green mana for each creature he has in play. He's returning Forest to his hand with the Quirion Ranger ability. I don't know what he untapped, though. So he can make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana now, which can easily... Okay, he was deciding which creature he was untapping with the Ranger's ability. Making 7, returning Elvish Visionary with the Wirewood Symbiote ability. And, I mean, now you just Natural Order, right? Sacrifice the Heritage Druid. And, I mean... 2 Craterhoof Behemoths by themselves is going to be just a tremendous amount of damage. We see Alex with the Cast Out, hitting the Heritage Druid. He's out of there. Okay, fine. I'll just Natural Order a different boy. Elvish Visionary drawing 3 more cards. And a Wirewood Symbiote. I think John is just trying to flood the field to make sure that he has enough damage. But Alex is tapped out at this point, so a little bit of overkill. Get rid of one of the summoning sick creatures, get another Craterhoof. And that's a lot of damage. Alex concedes, and we are on to game 2. Alex with that Forest into Commune. Let's see what he grabs here. He's got plenty. Oh, he's going to grab an enchantment, Engineered Plague. He's going to choose a creature type when it comes into play, giving all creatures of that chosen type -1/-1. The original engineered, or Plague Engineer. Plague Engineer a little bit more favored since it only affects opponent's creatures, whereas this is all creatures of that type, including your own. But because it's an enchantment, Alex favors that, for obvious reasons. We see John playing a Bayou and just deploying that Heritage Druid, getting his mana producer out early. Although it can't do anything until it has 2 more Elves in play. But I mean, if John goes land 2 more Elves, he could just go off as early as next turn. Serra Sanctum being deployed on Alex's side. This is his version of Gaia's Cradle, also from Urza Saga, making white for each enchantment in play. We see John go for that 0 CMC Green Sun Zenith, grabbing the Dryad Arbor and then playing a fetch land and passing. So John could go and get the other Dryad Arbor out of his deck if he wanted to with the Verdant Catacombs. See Alex deploy his Forest, a cycled Cast Out. So now this Serra Sanctum's tapping for 2. Looks like Alex... Oh, I was about to say Alex couldn't play his Engineered Plague, but that Abundant Growth allows for him to tap for any colored mana. And we see the Sterling Grove and Engineered Plague both deployed, getting rid of Elves. All Elves are -1/-1, which is basically all Elves. And then the Sterling Grove is going to give all of his other enchantments Shroud. So the only enchantment that can be targeted at this point is the Sterling Grove itself. You can also go and find any enchantment and put it on top of your deck, but I think Alex is looking to prevent spot removal for the Engineered Plague, as this is kind of a auto win condition for him at this point. John does run this guy, Leaf Crown Visionary, which gives other elves +1/+1, but it itself is a 1/1, therefore dying to the state-based effect of being an elf. So that's not going to save him. I think John's only out here is he's got a 1 of Progenitus in the sideboard, and so if he can get to 4 mana and keep his Dryad Arbor alive here, he can turn it into a 10/10 with protection from everything. Alex in a commanding board here. John does have the Natural Order in his hand, so I'm assuming that Progenitus did not come in for this game, or he would have already fired it off, since I think Progenitus is pretty much immune to anything that Enchantress can do. John does have the 1 of Assassin's Trophy, but at this point, with 2 Sterling Groves in play, that's kind of lights out. The Engineered Plague is here to stay. Yeah, Alex has a Doomwake Giant and Seal of Primordium, Stony Silence, Swords of Plowshares, but Progenitus has Protect from everything, so no dice. So John kind of holding on here with his non-elves, Wirewood Symbiote in play. Alex has deployed his win condition in the Hallowed Haunting, which is going to make a spirit that is XX equal to the number of spirits you control every time that you cast an enchantment. John going for a last-ditch effort here, playing the Glimpse of Nature and just sacrificing his 1 CMC Elves to the board, trying to dig into the deck. Not sure what he's looking for. He's got a Green Sun Zenith now. So 3 1-of boys into the yard, crashing in with the Arbor and the Symbiote. So now that Alex has Hallowed Haunting on the field, things are probably going to get pretty bad. Although Alex doesn't have any draw engines on the field, so he's basically playing off the top of his deck. He does have the Miri's Guile in play, so he has a little bit of selection. But right now he only's got 1 Spirit, although they do have Flying and Vigilance, since he has many, many, many enchantments in play. Elves playing, or John playing the, he played a Once Upon a Time to grab either a land or a creature, and he ended up grabbing the Gaia's Cradle. Green Sun Zenith for 3. Looking through the deck. He might be running his Endurances. He's got 4 on the side. Just as another creature that's not an elf. Decides to go for Nettle Sentinel. The only elf in the deck that is not a 1/1. So brought down to a 1/1 now that it is a 2/2. Gaia's Cradle. Tapping for some mana, being able to get another Wirewood Symbiote in play. But this is kind of lights out for John for this game because the Destiny Spinner is going to turn these boys into huge XXs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They would be 9 9s for 4 mana. But Alex wants to make sure that the game is absolutely over. He sacrifices one of his Sterling Groves to put Doomwake Giant on top of the deck. Doomwake Giant giving -1/-1 to all creatures your opponents control when it or another enchantment enters the battlefield. Sealing John's fate for Game 2. We are now 1-1 going into Game 3 with 2 minutes left on the board. Ooh, seeing a Gaia's Cradle as a second land deployed for John. Turn 2. 2 mana is going to get a Green Sun Zenith for 1. Grabbing the Birchlore Rangers. A little bit different. Birchlore Rangers, tap 2 untapped elves. You get 1 mana of any color. If you're short on elves, this is a little different version of Heritage Druid. Not quite the return, but less elves required. Alex going for a Savannah. Only 30 seconds left on the clock, so what's going to happen here is these players are going to go to turns, because there's no way either of them are getting the win here. Seeing Sithis, drawing an extra card off of Utopia Sprawl. And I think we are going to go to turns. That was really close. I think that players have decided that John is actually turn 0. Which means that each player is going to get 3 turns basically to close out the game. And if they can't, then it's going to be declared as a draw. Whoever's up on a game wins. And if both players have a game, then it is a draw for the round. We see John go for Grist, his one of Planeswalker, sacrifice his Dryad Arbor to destroy Sithis. And pass it back. Alex dropping a 2-drop here. Destiny Spinner into play. An Abundant Growth, just draw a card. Has 1 green mana floating. Goes for Commune with the Spirits, dig a little bit deeper in the deck. I think John is going to try and close it out here, if he can. So he's got 2, 3 mana, 4 mana. So he does have Natural Order here. So there's 4. And there's a Leaf Crown Visionary, going to pump the team a little bit. You can also pay some green mana to draw extra cards. Ooh, the Heritage Druid, that's going to be pretty good. So now we got 3 green mana and 2 floating. Looks like mana was paid to draw an extra card. Oh, he's got the Natural Order. So he's attacking for 2 and passing his turn. He's going to set up for the Natural Order on his next turn, hoping that Alex doesn't have too much interaction. He knows about the On Thin Ice. Maybe... Oh, there's an Enchantress's presence. There's the On Thin Ice. Targeting what? Is it the Heritage Druid? Or is it the Leaf Crown Visionary? Let's shut down the extra mana. But I mean, having a Gaia's Cradle, you almost have all the mana that you'll ever need. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana, Natural Order, sacrifice an insect. Sacrifice the insect you make with Grist, and then just turn it sideways for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, did get the Heritage Druid off of the On Thin Ice, goes in for 2 with the Destiny Spinner. chump blocks. And this is John's final turn, so if he's going to make it happen, he's going to make it happen right now. See a fetch land, Windswept Heath, going to go grab a Dryad Arbor, increasing the creature count. Just used it for the natural order, grabbing the Craterhoof Behemoth, giving everything plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he's able to turn it sideways with most of those creatures, including the Craterhoof, so yeah, that's plus 20, and then the PT of these creatures, and that is game. Wow. That was super duper close, and Alex had the Doomwake Giant in his hand. Really close games, but John squeaked it out on the last turn. Quite the showing from both decks, but as we saw right at the last second, John was able to pull it out with the Craterhoof Behemoth, and it just goes to show that the aggro combo deck really depends on winning out of nowhere sometimes. I want to thank everyone for sticking around with the channel over this last year. We are coming up on 500 subscribers, and that's really exciting for me personally, as this is my first YouTube channel. As always, the deck lists, if you're interested, are in the description of this video, as well as being able to jump to the actual match if you don't want to listen to my intros. Thanks as always to our LGS, Spellhold Games, for allowing us to record all of these at the store over this last year. We really appreciate them allowing us to use their space. If you haven't already, you should check us out on Twitch for Tuesday Night Legacy. We do streaming commentary sometimes. We're trying to kind of figure out what the Twitch channel is going to look like in the future here, but you can always check out the channel on Tuesday nights at 7:30 Pacific Standard Time for just the raw games themselves of the players playing, of course, at normal speed. And if you haven't already and you're still here, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps our numbers, and it really helps the algorithm to show us to new people who'd be interested in seeing Paper Legacy being played and commentated on. And we'll see you next time here on Tuesday Night Legacy. Bye!